All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cave Podcast. This will be episode, I believe, 7. Um, Excited for this interview that I got going here. If you haven't checked out the last interview that I did with Anna Parrish, I'm gonna put that somewhere on the screen or in the description so you can click and go and watch that. There should be a follow-up episode right after that that's gonna get posted sometime. I don't know why I'm speaking like y'all are gonna be viewing this at the same time that I'm talking, but it'll be there. Go and give that a listen to. So yeah, got another guy on here who's ready to answer some questions and just share his testimony and all the things that God has in store for him. Put it that way. So yeah, I met this guy my freshman year. Been in Troy for 3 years, so that'd been like 3 years ago almost.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
long time, man. I feel old. uh, I think I met him because we were both like exercise science majors, and he took a lot of the classes that I'm taking. So,
hmm
uh, definitely a trusted friend, funny guy. We have a lot of similarities in some of the things that's happened to us. So, I know he'll be a great, great person to interview. So, you ready, my guy?
I am ready. I
Let's
am
get
ready.
it. Let's get it. So, the first question is simple, like all of them has been. It's just you telling
hmm
us who you are and
Yeah.
sharing your testimony and all that good stuff.
All right. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Jalen Stewart. I'm currently a senior here at Troy University. Been here for a good minute. Exercise science major, like we said. Um, that's pretty much baseline. That's it. That's just basic knowledge right there. Um, for the first question about my testimony, I can say that it's huge, but it's nothing that happened within a day. If you can kind of understand that, but
Yeah.
I can just go throughout like my entire life, which I feel like will be really viable at this point. So normally, growing up in the South, raised growing up in church, just going to church consistently, just day in day out, every Sunday, every Wednesday, and that's basically where my just foundation started. With me being so young at the time, though, I was just going because my parents made me, it was just that thing we did. And and I kind of grasped what just a relationship with Christ was with just going to church with my grandparents and with them being there all the time and the relationship I had with them. It was just kind of instilled in me at that point. And I would say throughout just me growing up, kind of towards like middle school when my grandmother passed, because we all went to the same church and everything, and she was a huge part of the church. My grandparents were on my mom's side. She passed away, and that is kind of whenever I first started kind of reaching out to God, like just kind of trying to know Him and know what a relationship with Him is like, because this is like a pivotal moment for me,
hmm
and I was just kind of going through it with emotions I didn't know how to control or feel. I didn't know what to say, how to act or anything during this situation. And I always remember that my grandmother, she was a very, very, very just spiritual person. Always Christ was first in everything she did. Heavy on the prayer, like super heavy on the prayer, and that's one thing I learned from her as well. That prayer absolutely works. Like
Yeah.
Christ is always going to be there. God's always there. And during that moment, that's whenever I first started kind of learning about Christ and getting to know who God truly was. Um, Growing up in school, I went up to grew up in public school, but in sixth grade I went to American Christian Academy, went to a private school, and just going there throughout my whole life, it was like read the Bible almost every day. And it was a point to where growing up, it's kind of gets like routine, and it
Mhm.
seems like, oh, you're just going through the motions of doing it or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's how it was for a good bit because we were quizzed on it. We read it day in, day out. We read verses, we memorized verses and everything. But one thing that I'm grateful that like we did that. But within doing that, with it going through the motions and all, I'm glad that outside of that and me leaving, I still have that instilled within me. And there's intentions behind it now.
hmm
Because it can get to a point to where when you do it kind of every day at that like level, it can be as if like it's schoolwork because we were getting a grade for we had Bible class and we were getting grades for it and everything. So it seemed like almost like another subject like math or like English or something.
Right.
But I'm just thankful that we did have that because to where I am now, it kind of just set more even more groundwork for where I am in my faith today. Um, I guess I can say that can lead up to like today where I guess my faith is definitely stronger, more concrete than it was before because, like I said, going through the motions, not having a guess a rhyme or reason or that even that desire to chase, it was just like there for me all the time. It was just really convenient
Yeah.
for me instead of me just being like one on one, like God, here I am. This is what I want. I want you to guide my steps every day. It wasn't. It was more of like a jog more than a run for Christ. If
Hmm.
you can kind of get where that's coming from.
Totally. Yeah, I can relate to that too. Especially like growing up uh in church because I did VBS like I was in church with my mom and my dad and my grandparents and great grandparents who were in church every Sunday. And I definitely can relate to the feeling of just like, you know, reading the Bible verses and it just becoming a routine thing. I know for like VBS, we were, told, what's this verse in, this chapter of this verse or whatever. You had to tell it out word for word. And so that's kind of how I built, scriptural knowledge of just, where a verse is at, what is it
Hmm.
saying? And then, you know, I feel like the applying that and, making it instead of just a routine, but more, relationship comes in, as you mature and get
Hmm.
older. So yeah, I see exactly where you're coming from in that one. So with two now that you're in college and you're pretty much in the real world for yourself, how has your faith been changed or altered in the midst of all of that?
I'm glad you pointed out maturity because that's where it's definitely altered. It just changed. I've gotten more serious about it. Where just growing up and going to college and going away, there's been multiple times where I've been feeling like lost or out of place with no like direction or anything.
Hmm.
And that's when just by the grace of God he pulled me in. He was like, "Hey, I'm right here. Like just come to me and you'll be a-okay." That's where kind of just my faith has shifted in college because there were points in times where we'll get to this kind of later on where I'll get so caught up in just everything extracurricular kind of just like school like just daily things of life,
Hmm.
but it'll get to a point to where they're like the only things like God isn't like the center of all these things,
Right.
and God really reeled me in, pulled me back in, say, hey, just put me first, all the things are going to fall into place. It's kind of like a puzzle piece,
Yeah.
and he was that missing puzzle piece. So that's where my faith has definitely just grown stronger. My like belief, my faith in Christ, and my confidence within myself and my relationship with Christ has increased immensely, and it is still continuing to today.
Yeah. So, like, just a side question.
Hmm.
When, obviously coming into college, do you think for especially like Christian men, it's harder to remain rooted in your faith as you get to college and as you experience a lot of these things? Or do you think it's something that um becomes easier or harder? Does it depend on the person? Like, how does your view of that kind of shape?
I definitely say it's just from the things I learned, like just from the different classes I've taken and learning about how people work and how people move and how people interpret and portray things. It it's a combination of all those things.
Hmm.
Like it definitely does depend on the person and how they grew up, their background, what they've been through, and their relationship now and how it was back then. It it can be easier for people to stay rooted in their faith and just stay connected and dialed in 100%, and it could be harder for others. And it's just that everyone's relationship with Christ is different. Everyone has their own race. Like I can relate it to just me in school because I'm a fifth year senior. I'm a fifth year senior because it's like COVID year. I'm pretty sure that messed me up.
Yeah,
that
that
that set me
messed a
back.
lot of us.
That did a number on me. But one thing I was told by my parents, and thankful for my parents and my family. They're like, hey man, like whatever you do, we got your back. Everyone has their own race. I know like a couple of your friends graduating at this time, and like you feel left behind. You might feel left behind a little bit, but just know that God has a plan. There's no rush. There's no need
Mhm.
because it's going to be done, and His name will be done. So also just within not only a race with just completing school, but like with Christ, like in His will, it'll be done. It'll be done.
Yeah, I can see it's kind of different depending on the perspective and their own battle that they have to run. And
Mhm.
like you said, like I love that point. Everybody has their own race, and sometimes we get caught up trying to compare our race to somebody else, and I think
Mhm.
that's when we, you know, take that
Mhm.
step back.
Mhm.
So, the third question that I had, obviously, well, between me and you, obviously, but they don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
You had a injury to your knee or your leg that had happened in an intramural game. And, I know that's something we both can relate to.
Mhm.
So, a little bit about that story and kind of how that, you know, changed, your thinking and your mindset throughout that whole injury process.
We can take it back to the beginning. It's almost a year anniversary of the injury to the day. It's about a couple days away. Um, Basically, what happened? Playing basketball. Basketball is a physically demanding sport in a bunch of aspects. I was going up to lay the ball up, I exploded, and then all of a sudden it's like this loud little pop that happened. And I was in midair. Two dudes like kind of on the side of me, and they're like, "Yo, what is that? What just happened?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is not good." So I figured out it was my knee. It was a like I guess the first night whenever I went to Tour IMC.
Mhm.
Um, Not gonna say anything about that area, but definitely if you know, you know. But Troy IMC, they was like, "Oh, it's just a dislocated knee. He can walk and everything. Like you should be fine." But I could not even like stand. I couldn't even stand on my leg, and they wouldn't like even give me crutches to walk out. And I was like, "Oh, I can't walk. I absolutely need crutches." So I'm really like just a side note before I keep continuing. I'm really thankful for the people that were like that God placed in my life for to take care of me during that moment because it was I didn't know what was going on. I was really confused. I didn't know how like bad the injury was or anything. But um get back home, rest my knee a little bit, and then we actually go to Baptist South, which is a another hospital that's about an hour away from here. And they said, "Hey, you have patellar tendon tear, a little rupture." I was like, that's funny because my dad did the same thing 10 years prior.
Yep.
10 years ago, same injury. But he was a little bit worse because he tore his right quad. But
Mhm.
I was like, thanks, Dad. These jeans are, he made me athletic, but at what cost? But injury happened and, entire rehab process up to today. I can jog, I can start running a little bit, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there slowly but surely. But during the injury, I can say from the time I got hurt, it was an immediate shock factor. But I can say I really didn't feel much pain through it all. Like through being injured and like just adapting to that rehab process of starting to walk again, getting my range of motion back. Of course, it hurt, but it wasn't enough hurt to be like, oh, this is make it or break it. This isn't
Yeah.
gonna like take me out completely.
Mhm.
And the timing as well of the injury because at that moment, of course, I was like back in school. I had a good routine going. I was like getting up early. I was eating right. I just got from the grocery store. It wasn't like it was cheaper. I had like not a bunch of like Totino's pizzas on my plate. I was cooking like grilled chicken and rice. I was doing it big, going to the gym. I had everything under control. But at that time, God still wasn't like first. It was more of myself. And I
Right.
feel like God pulled me back and he was like, hey, you gotta lock in. Essentially, he's like, you gotta dial in. I'm here. Don't forget about me.
Hmm.
And that really took time for me to just slow down and really realize that I need Christ. I can't do this on my own.
Right.
Essentially, I can't do it on my own. And that's one thing that I can have define me is like I get it. Like I know I can't do it on my own. I need God to be here for me so He can guide me do these things to do His will.
Um,
And the injury really showed me that through all parts of the injury, through me getting hurt, being kind of at my lowest of like how this happened, why this happened, all the questions that comes with the injury,
hmm.
and excuse me, and slowly going through the rehab process to bending my knee to kind of starting to walk and then walking. It was like really, really eye opening to what just different trials that I can go through within a certain process
Right.
to where God can show me just answers throughout every step of the way and how he has like shown himself and made himself visible to me. And it was I'd say it was worth it
Yeah.
because normally injuries like that, it's hard to come back from.
Hmm.
Like it's more, if I feel like it's more mental than
100%.
physical.
100%.
It's 100% more mental than physical because of course, like it's gonna take time to get better and everything, but it's like I had to put in this work. I had to actively put myself through pain to get this progress, and it,
Hmm.
it hurt. It hurt real bad.
Not a fun experience.
It is not fun, but like that light is always there. It's always there in the tunnel, man. It's always there. There's one thing I saw. This was years ago. It was years ago, back when I like first had my iPod Touch playing like Flappy Bird and everything on it. Just got Instagram. This is quote. It said, "If you're going through hell, heaven's right around the corner. It's right there. You just gotta fight through. You just gotta push through."
Hmm.
And God, like I said, God is that light. He's been there the whole time. He's with me, just holding my hand through the process, saying it's all right. It's okay. You're gonna feel pain, but you're gonna make it through. And that can not only apply to my injury, but it can apply to any aspect of my life, whether that's school, relationships, just life in general. What things that happen and pop up, like it's like you might feel something, but you're gonna get through it, no matter what.
That's an amazing feeling. Like I know, I tore my PCL in like 11th grade, 10th grade,
Hmm.
and I had some of those same like questions you're asking yourself. Uh, like the difference between those two story is you had that foundation of God-centered relationship. At this point in time, I'm in 10th
Hmm.
grade. God really isn't on my mind at all,
Hmm.
and so a little piece of like your story that kind of intermingled with mine was, it was, and to me after I got injured, it was, I need to prove to myself like it's me, like I
Hmm.
got to do this, I got to do that, and like you said, the mentality and the mental aspect of that will just drag you down again and
Hmm.
again and again. And it wasn't until 2 years later where I was just like, all right, God, like again, like you said, I can't do this without you. Like now I need you in this specific area. And, I will say like my injury was, one of the catalysts that led me, to having that relationship with God. And it's real interesting how, it takes something, to that magnitude that kind of like reshapes you.
Hmm.
Um, because we're both sports guys. You take
Hmm.
that away from us, you got our full attention. It's like
Hmm.
we ain't got nothing else for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're locked in now. We're like I see what you're trying to get through me, and
Hmm.
I know you just said that throughout that whole injury process, one thing that God was telling you was like I got you, keep me in the center. Can you speak a little bit more about the value in having God in the center of your life and knowing that He's there by your side and how
Hmm.
that has affected you and changed you since your injury.
It is one thing I can say. It's an amazing comfort that I don't think anybody can like replace ever. Of course, like I said before, I'm thankful for my family, thankful for my friends, but there's times where like they have their own lives too. They got stuff they got to worry about as well,
Mhm.
and it's the times where you seem like you're like alone by yourself, and like you're going through these motions, you're going through these things. alone. No, I put the air quotes because you're never really alone.
Right.
Like God, he's always there, whether you think about it, whether you don't, always there with you 100%. And having him in the center of everything, it makes a world of difference. It's almost to where it leaves me speechless even. And I'm trying to find like the right words to say and trying to let God kind of step in and like just kind of drag it out of me, but it's it just leaves me really speechless. Like having and knowing that he's always there is just it's a wonderful thing. It's I guess just one of those traits that you can't just grasp from anybody
Hmm.
because it even kind of relates to just things of the world as well. And we search for certain things. We might be looking everywhere, and we can't find it.
Right.
Right beside you. All you gotta do is just look. You just gotta look, and he's right there every time.
Yeah.
But without fail either,
Agreed.
because because I was I don't remember when this was brought up when we were talking about this, but like I said, people are always gonna be there. We're gonna be there for you, but it's not always.
Hmm.
Like it's like I wish I could be there for my dad during times he goes through something. Like I wish I could be there for like everybody when they go through something because going through stuff is just rough. It's just life. It's just things
Right.
just happen. But like I said, we all have our own lives to live. We all have things we have to do, take care of, and just worry about. And when that's gone, who will we have? Like this, there wouldn't be nearly any amount of people that like could be there 100% of the time.
Right.
And that's just a void that we can't fill. It's just like for love, for example, it's like I can love you, but the love that God has for you, it's always gonna be greater than mine.
Right.
And it's just it takes understanding from both sides to kind of like gauge and recognize that. Like just and even in relationships as well. It's like I can love somebody as much as I can, but like, am I gonna let you down? I probably am because
Hmm.
we're not made to be perfect. We're
Right.
not made to be perfect. But you know someone who is, that person who's with you all the time, who's constantly watching over you in your every step. He's the one that is perfect. He's the one that has that perfect love, that perfect everything to give you everything. And it's just within us to kind of follow him, let him guide us to show the love that he's shown us.
Yeah.
So to reel it all back in, having God at the center of everything gives us kind of the access to share what he's done for us to others.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. I think that's kind of like one of those things where it's like, I sit back and I think, maybe there's a reason we're made specifically like that. Like,
mm-hmm,
there's a reason why people can't fill a void, that certain, because I had that same issue with me in high school is that I was
mm-hmm,
constantly looking for validation or acknowledgement or a void to be filled. And I looked for it in people.
mm-hmm,
And so, throughout that, I would say I was relatively one of the more known peoples because I just seeked relationships with people, whether it be, friendships or a girlfriend or a
mm-hmm,
best friend or all of these type of things. Like I was just searching for that void. And it never like I think what goes under the radar is that you might be temporarily satisfied.
mm-hmm,
But as far as the long run, the long stretch, like people don't stay forever.
mm-hmm,
People's feelings change by the day.
mm-hmm.
And my mom used to tell me all the time, God is the same God he was yesterday as he is today, as he'll ever be tomorrow.
Right.
And it's like having that security, knowing that he's not going to change on me for anything. I could be the worst of my worst, the highs of my highs, and he's still constant. And
Mm-hmm,
I think that is something that, especially in college, we're all searching for consistency. You spoke about the routine you had gotten yourself into before you got injured with the food you were eating and, going to classes and going to the gym, just having a consistent routine. And, God is the epitome of consistency. Like, He's not going to change on us. Regardless of what we decide to do, God's always going to be there. Whether it be in disciplining us or humbling us or loving us or blessing us, like He's still the same God. And I think that goes really, really under the radar,
Mm-hmm.
especially, when you're in the midst of an injury. It's like you got two options. I can turn away from God or I can look towards God. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's, you know, they're getting to see two different contrasts of it, whereas you were like, okay, I need to get my relationship back with God. I was like, I have to do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's, beauty in the midst of all like all of the things that you were saying about, God filling that void, having him in the center of your relationship. Like that's really important, I
Mm-hmm.
would say, for college students, no matter where you're from or, what you're going through, is that he's always there. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can let you down. He can't really let you down.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that is a hard concept. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
for me and myself, like just the thought of what does it truly mean that I'm never alone? Like how can you like how do you think about that and how do you process the thoughts of, I'm not alone, like God's with me, even if it feels like he's not. Like how can you, you know, see that, understand that and still say, God's still with me.
Mm-hmm. Times times can get hard because we're human and we feel things, we feel different emotions, and it's 100% okay to feel the way that we do. When there's times where we're just down on our luck, down pretty bad, not feeling so good about ourselves, it can get dark because there's times where even when I was younger, like in high school and everything, of course, that's when most of these things happen. We're just kind of forming to ourselves and we're
Yeah.
just feeling just different emotions of just what goes on and everything with relationships and just people and just school and just everything that just teenagers has to have to go through. It's just that we hit points to where it's like, man, this is rough. I don't have anybody in my corner, and the mind it's powerful. The mind's a powerful thing, and it can work in two ways, and that's one thing that I've learned because it it takes a lot because the amount of effort you can put in and just magnifying where you are and it's like, man, I'm like really sad right now. I don't want to do anything. I feel lazy. I don't want to eat. Something's got me down in the dumps. And you can magnify that times 100.
Hmm.
In the same way, you can magnify it's like, I might be down right now, but God's got me. He's going to bring me up. You can do it that same way. It can go in the same way. And it's hard to do and it's hard to recognize because, like, normally for us, it's normal for us to just stay down and just kind of beat ourselves up
Right.
about certain things because, like, for example, I've man, I'm a very injury prone man. Just thinking about it, like I hurt my ankle for one game, and it was like before one of the biggest games of the year, my senior year,
Yeah.
and I was beating myself up about it. I was like, man, like if only I didn't like go for that jump shot, if I didn't go for that rebound, like I wouldn't have landed on my ankle like that, and I
Hmm.
wouldn't have hurt myself. Because like I was like, man, they kind of need me out there because like it's a team sport, but when you're missing vital pieces, the team could essentially just like fall apart.
Right.
But you can beat yourself up in many ways, but it also takes a lot to be like, hey, like these things happen, but it's all gonna be okay. Because the way that that's like in fact impacted my view on everything is that God has gotten me to this very second. What can stop him to getting me through many more?
Right.
And that has changed my view 100%. It's like a complete 180 of just me just kind of looking at it that way. Because fortunate just things on a daily that we do, like we can hurt ourselves doing. Like me driving from home and back, because I'm from Tuscaloosa. That's a 2 hour and 45 minute drive.
Right.
Like anything happened within that little time period of me, like just doing anything.
Hmm.
Like for example, I got in this car, I got in a wreck one time where I was actually leaving here, and my parents were leaving here too. I was moving to an apartment with my roommate Isaac, really good guy by the way, and and I was like super tired. I was super tired, and like I couldn't sleep the night before, and all of a sudden I just fall asleep at the wheel, and I'm trying to pull myself back together, and like the first thoughts was like. God help me in this situation. The second was like, what am I doing? Like, what is going on? And the third one was like, how are my parents feeling right now? Because they were behind me seeing this happen.
Yeah.
And like the way I was is like on 231, is that little two lane.
Hmm.
I was really like sideways. Like my car was sideways and I was looking back at my parents because they were behind me. And I see my dad with this look. He's like, I can't help you right now. And my mom just screaming like, Jesus help, Jesus help. And I was like, this is insane. That was a very defining moment.
Yeah.
But during that, it was like, ooh wee. That was something. But that's just another example of like just things happening and popping up where God has pulled me through. Like at the end of that, like I just and went into the ditch. My car was okay. I was fine. I was just a little shaken up. There's no major injuries that happened to me. So that was a major blessing to me.
Hmm.
And stuff like that can have an effect on people for a long time. It's like, because after that, I was like, man, come on, let me hop in. Like, I don't want to drop no more. I
Yeah.
do not want to get behind the wheel. I can't do it. And my cousin, he had the same thing happen to him. But with him, he wouldn't drive for like, it was like a year before he even drove.
Hmm.
And I told him for me to get over it, as in all things, I went to God. I prayed about it. I was like, every time I hit the road, I say a prayer, and then I know I'm covered going by my day,
Yeah.
going through it. Because, like driving is one thing that is like very beneficial because
Hmm.
it gets us places, it gets us to do what we need to do. And do those things, God can lead us to go in different directions through just getting somewhere. It allows Him to work through us to reach out to everyone.
Right.
Just and we don't want any type of thing to just be blocked off, you know, to stop us from sharing God's story and God's love and what He's done for us.
Agreed. Agreed. I always pray before I get on the street. Just like
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just like I always do. Cause I used to not like driving on there. Now I can just fly on there every time I want to. But I still gotta say a prayer before I
Mhm.
do. Oh.
I know there's so much I can like say. I'm trying to get to like just the baseline of having God at the center of everything. But also just another point throughout the injury of just the people in my life and how just God just works in miraculous and wonderful ways is that I get injured, and of course my dad had the same injury. He was a really big mentor for me because he's been through it.
Hmm.
He's like, I know what I have to do, and like I can tell you exactly what I did. Here's what you do. You just gotta go up there and do it. It's gonna be hard, but it's possible. Cause look at me. And I remember this Facebook post I have in my phone in my favorites. It's like him, like maybe like a year after, and he's like jogging on and running on a treadmill. I was like, why can't that be me? Like, why
Right.
can't I do it? If he can do it, like I can do it as well.
Hmm.
And literally 3 years later, I will never forget this Facebook post. Prior knowledge, my dad was a bodybuilder back in the day. He's a freak of nature. He is a different beast. So like when I say this, this is gonna be nuts, but that's just him. 3 years after his patellar tendon injury, I remember this Facebook post clear as day. He said, "It's only 800 pounds, but we're getting there." Hashtag by the grace of God, and it's him leg pressing 800 pounds.
Sheesh.
I was like, brother, you're crazy.
800 is wild.
But it but it also shows me what God can do.
Hmm.
And like my one of my biggest things, another thing is like watch what God can do through me. Cause it's just another story to show God's work and God's faithfulness and God's love and everything that God can do within us.
Right. Yeah, that is crazy. No,
Yeah.
look, I would never. That's only a dream for me. I can't do that. But yeah, man. Zona, thank you for jumping on the podcast and speaking our knowledge. Said a lot of great things. I've learned a couple of things that I didn't really have that much understanding for. I hope you guys can take the necessary values and lessons from Jalen's story and a little bit of mine that will give you motivation because all we need really is somebody who says that I've gone through that. And,
Hmm.
I think God wants us to rely on each other a little bit more than, we ought to, that we have been doing. So, uh, again, as one of the co-hosts of this channel, thank you. I know the other co-host would too. He's off in Georgia doing something. I ain't no telling. I'm not throwing shots at him, so he's all right. So yeah, well, again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on the podcast. We'll leave his socials either on this screen somewhere or in the description. Uh, Again, check out the other videos that are posted on the channel. And yeah, man, appreciate you for
Yeah,
coming.
yeah, check those out, man. There's some good gems in there, bro. One thing I've learned is that you can learn something from everybody
Yeah,
because everybody we're the same, but everyone's unique in their own way. We all go through things, but we all don't go through the same thing. We can always learn something from somebody. So you should definitely check those out. You should definitely check those out. Some wonderful people. There's some wonderful people out here. You'd be surprised.
you really would.
But
All right,
thank you for
man.
having me. I really appreciate it. It was
Yes, sir.
nice. This was fire. So.
Appreciate it.